Welcome to part one of the Program Review Podcast. This podcast will primarily cover Chapter 12, but I will also briefly touch on some material from a couple other chapters. So our objectives for this podcast are to discuss the purposes of program review, also known as program evaluation. In addition, we'll discuss how program review is done using the ABC model. I like this quote out of the textbook: "You can always defend your program better with data-based arguments documented with professionally designed reports than you can with subjective emotional arguments." In the day and ages where physical education is trying to defend physical education, classes, programs at all levels, from kindergarten all the way up through the university level, it's really important that you can defend your own program with data, quality data that is objective, meaning it's measurable. It's not subjective, meaning it's based on your opinions, but it's quality data that is professionally designed in reports, that is clear to all that are reading it what you're trying to tell them. That is one of the primary purposes of program review or program evaluation. Just as a reminder, in the ABC model, and this has been covered in the past, but it's important to remember that in the ABC model there are 5 components, and each one of these components are intertwined or linked with one another. None of them are really standalone. The program planning is the curriculum development stage that we've been doing a lot of in this class, is actually developing what you're going to teach. One of the things that we're not doing in this class is how to assess student learning. We're going to see that that's a critical step that we need to take into consideration when we're talking about program review, program evaluation. Then we're going to our component 3 is actually putting a plan into motion, which is implementation of the planning. It's actually doing it, and 4 is teaching it. And then we're at step 5 or component 5, which is the evaluation of the program, evaluation of the curriculum. Did the curriculum work? Just so you know, I'm going to flip-flop some words around. Assessment and evaluation to me are the exact same thing, in my opinion. So I'll probably say student evaluation, student assessment, program review, and program evaluation. They all mean the same thing, just so we're clear on that up front. First, let's talk about student assessment, and this is from chapters 7 and 11 in our textbook. Just want to cover this because I think it's critical, because it is linked with our program review. It's important that we match the assessment to our learning objectives, which are linked to our content, which are linked to our program goals, which are linked to our school and district objectives, which are linked to our national or federal goals. Really what we're trying to do with student assessment is to objectively and without bias determine if a student has actually learned the objectives that we have developed for our program. So our assessment should be mostly measurable or objective. What I mean by that, I'm one of those physical education people that don't think that students should get majority of their points for just dressing out to go to PE classes. To me, that's downgrading physical education. I think you need to develop assessment procedures to determine if students are meeting the objectives of your lessons. Have they made quality improvements? You may have to do, in the textbook, they talk about pre-assessment. Have them do the skill before you teach, do the teaching, then measure them afterwards. That's post-assessment. All those types of measurements should be objective based. It should be measurable. It should be and the next bullet I have there, it should be a valid and reliable measure of student learning. Um, those of you who have taken tests and measurements as an undergrad student understand that valid and reliable. Valid means it actually measures what it's supposed to measure. If you say you're going to measure vertical jump, make sure that the test that you're using actually measures vertical jump. Then the other part of our assessment is it should be a reliable measure of student learning. Reliability means that you use it over and over and over again, you'll get the same numbers on that test or assessment or whatever you're using. So it needs to be valid and reliable, needs to be objective, needs to be measurable when you're assessing student learning. The other thing with, some teachers have classes of 30 or 40, 50 or more students. It needs to be easy to assess student performance with a whole bunch of students. So we have to take that into consideration when you're developing your student assessment. And the other thing I think it's critical, if you have a very big program, you need to make sure that all the teachers are using those assessment tools, so you have uniformity across your program and make sure that all the teachers are using it the same way. It's very critical with student assessment. There's some other things that are critical with assessment too, is things are called formative and summative assessment. The purpose of doing these things is that we know that student evaluation should be a continuous process. It's not just one time. We do it more than once and multiple different times. And there's two main types of evaluation. One type is called formative evaluation, and then another type is summative evaluation. And you should see this as both of these types of evaluation. In any academic program, you should see these. Okay, so formative evaluation takes place throughout the instructional period. We just don't do it once. We measure learning multiple places at multiple times. And this will be the different learning activities that we may have. Another thing that formative evaluation does is to formulate and revise objectives or techniques. So it gives us an idea of what works, what doesn't work, for us teachers to make us better teachers, but it also to see if the objectives are the right objectives for the age group and those type of things. It also emphasizes the guidance of the learning process. Learning is a process. We want our students throughout the year to learn different things, and in our curriculum we develop those things that we're trying to hit, and we want to make sure that students are on step to meet those program goals that we have established. Then our summative evaluation, sum in math means the total when we add things up, so we have the big picture type evaluation. And this happens at the completion of the instructional period. This would be more for looking at how all students did at the end of a period, class period, or a program. We want to look across all the students and see how everybody did, and see how if our program goals were met, if the objectives are met. Again, we direct that it's directed towards the sum total of results. We're not just looking at individual students, we're looking at all students. And again, we're looking to see if students are actually meeting our program objectives or goals. So let's look at the difference between student evaluation versus program evaluation and program review. Student evaluation, again, data is used to compare an individual student's performance to specific criteria. So student A, how student A do on learning objective A. Whereas in program evaluation or review, data is used to compare the entire class grade level or program performance to the program goals. We can use the term either content But typically it's going to be that program goal that you have written in your curriculum. How are the students as a whole meeting those program goals? So again, student level is individual students, whereas program level is you're comparing the entire class, grade level, or the whole program to your program goals. So why do we do program review? If I was in the face-to-face class, I'd open that up and we'd have a discussion about it, but since we're not, I'll just have to tell you. So Kelly and Melograno stated that program review is the process of determining and communicating program merit and areas that need to be reviewed for potential revisions. So the first one is program merit. Why is this a good program? Why should we still continue it? What are we doing well with it? What can we improve on? That's the potential revisions. How can we make it better? You're really justifying your program. And Jewett, Bain, and Ennis in '95 said that program review is to make program improvement, just to make it better. We have a few more additional purposes why we do program review. Is we want to document the validity and importance of expectations, our goals and objectives of the program. We want to show that our students are meeting those, and we want to show how important those are. We also want to document the way in which the program is being implemented. We said we have this curriculum, and now we're showing that it's actually been implemented in this method. Program review also determines the effectiveness of program on participants. Are the students actually learning what we hope for them to learn? Is it effective? Are the teachers being effective? Is the curriculum being effective? In addition, it provides information-based recommendations for revisions necessary to reduce identified weakness. Again, it's not based on, I think this is what's going on. We have data-based information that's telling us for sure this is what's happening, this is what the data is telling us, let's make these changes so we can make our program better. So it's not weak, it's a strong program. I believe the textbook does a good job in developing a program review process. The thing with it is we know the different components are linked to one another. In order to do the program review process, you need to develop your assessment sheets as described in chapters 7 and 11. And it's from those student assessment sheets you're going to use that data to do your program review. The really critical point of all this is that the program review must be data driven and not opinion based. Use hard data to prove that your program is being successful or not successful. It's not if all your students dressed out. It's did they meet the learning objectives, specific learning objectives, and you assess that student learning. So you need to develop quality assessment and grading instruments. Again, that's in chapters 7 and 11.